You ever feel just completely alone? Like you've hit the end of your rope and there's absolutely no one to turn to? Well, today we're going to talk about that exact feeling and what it means when the only one you have left is God.
So let's just dive right into this powerful idea. This isn't about just being lonely. No, we're talking about a whole different state of being, something the source material calls sacred ground. It's this space where solitude gets totally transformed into something profound.
All right, so this first section, it's all about completely reframing how we think about being alone. The idea here isn't about what you've lost, but what you actually stand to gain.
Now this is what's so interesting. Look at the contrast here. The world sees loneliness, abandonment, emptiness, right? But this perspective, it offers something radically different. What if that loneliness is actually sacred ground? What if that feeling of abandonment is really a process of refinement? And that silence, it's not empty, it's a stillness where you can finally find true presence. So here's the key takeaway. This season of your life isn't meant to break you, not at all. It's actually designed to strip away all the noise, all the distractions, the chatter, the opinions of everyone else, so you can finally hear the one voice that really truly matters.
Okay, let's move on to our next big idea. And this whole concept, it isn't new, not by a long shot. History is literally filled with examples of people going through these intense periods of isolation, and those times turning out to be the training grounds for something so much bigger.
Yeah, the source material is really clear on this. It calls this place the wilderness. And it's not some endpoint, not a place of defeat. It's a training ground. It's where God shapes character, builds resilience. It's where you're being prepared for your destiny. It's where leaders aren't just found, they are forged.
And look at Moses. This is the perfect illustration of the process. He starts as a prince in Egypt, surrounded by all the power and influence in the world. And then he becomes a fugitive in the wilderness for 40 years, stripped of absolutely everything. But you see, that wilderness wasn't a punishment. It was his preparation. That's where he learned the humility and the total dependence on God that he would need to eventually lead an entire nation.
So these wilderness seasons, they teach you things you just can't learn anywhere else. These aren't just random hardships, no. They are like masterclasses in learning true dependence on God, humility over pride, and patience in the process. It's where you learn to hear His voice clearly, and you find a strength in the struggle that you never knew you had.
All right, now this next idea. I'll be honest, it might sound completely backward to everything we're ever taught, but it is one of the most powerful truths you can hear, especially if you're feeling weak or just totally overwhelmed right now.
Think about it. The world tells us to rely on our own strength, to hide our struggles, to never, ever show weakness. From the time we're kids, we're basically programmed to believe that being self-reliant is the goal. But then, you read this verse, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Wow. That's a complete 180, isn't it? It's saying that our moments of absolute helplessness, they aren't failures. They're actually the perfect opportunity for a divine strength, a strength that isn't ours, to finally show up.
So what this really means is that your weakness isn't a disqualification, not even close. It is the very place where God's strength can be put on full display. When you finally stop trying to hold it all together yourself, you make room for a power that is truly unshakable to step in.
So what happens when you get to that point? When you've hit the absolute bottom and you just say the words, "I can't," and you mean it with every fiber of your being.
There's a kind of prayer that only comes when you are completely out of options. It's not pretty, it's not polished, it's raw, it's real, and it's desperate. It's that cry from your gut that just says, "God, if you don't show up right now, I'm not going to make it."
And this is heaven's response to that cry. We talk about grace, but it's not some fragile, delicate concept. No, it's a divine force. It's the power that lifts you when you fall, that carries you when you're completely spent, and restores you when you feel broken beyond repair.
And this is the turning point. When you reach the absolute end of yourself, that is where you find the beginning of grace. The exact moment your inability to take one more step is met by God's ability to carry you the rest of the way.
Okay, let's bring all of this home. Because if you hear nothing else today, I really want you to hear this. This is the most important part.
I want you to really let this sink in. You are not disqualified. I don't care what you've done, what mistakes you've made, what your past looks like. You might feel disqualified, but you're not.
And you are not too far gone. Right now, in this moment, no matter how lost you feel, how deep in the hole you think you are not beyond his reach.
And you are not beyond repair. Even if you feel shattered into a million pieces and you're convinced they can never be put back together again, that's just not true.
Because this is not the end of your story. In fact, this might just be the chapter that changes everything. Why? Because you are in the absolute perfect position for a miracle. You're no longer leaning on all those shallow supports that were going to fail you anyway.
So trust the author. He finishes what he starts. Your story is being written by a master storyteller, and he never wastes a chapter, especially not the hard ones.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. What masterpiece is being written in your broken lines? What if this season of hardship, this feeling of being all alone, what if it's the very thing creating something unshakable and beautiful in you? What if this is where the masterpiece truly begins?